These four cryptos are set to take off. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name is Neil, keeping technical analysis short and sweet, avoiding Bitcoin this time, but moving right into Dash as we had a 64% pump in the past 2 days. Pretty good for the rest of the market being in a downtrend. The volume is picking up. It's holding above the 200 EMA. And the CM Guppy, this is kind of what we were watching when it hit that first mark at $72, which I had called out in a previous video. Definitely go check it out. It's specifically Dash and ZBEC network, I believe. And then I was stating we may come down into the CM Guppy right around the 50 mark. And if it pushes below that, we could expect that retracement back down to the 200 EMA. However, we had a nice consolidation, and the CM Guppy is holding up very nicely, and the volume is picking up. So right whenever it could not break over that 50 mark, in my CM Guppy, I put it right at the 50 because that's where you start seeing some major support. And as we see, we had that push up from yesterday back up to the $72 mark, which is around 62 to 65% increase. Are you expecting to enter into Dash right now? That probably isn't the best bet. I could be wrong. We could see just a ridiculous pump from this point, but it is best to keep an eye on it because we are oversold in the RSI down here. And typically when that happens, we have a retracement to keep it healthy, bringing it back towards the 50. Last time we pushed up to 72, we had that retracement in the RSI, getting that consolidation. So ultimately this area between 72 and 77, once that breaks and holds, and we don't see this quick movement, because when you see these quick movement upward, you typically have a retracement to keep the 200 EMA nice and close. Because when you start pulling away from that 200 EMA, say it pushes up to 130, the 200 EMA is too far away and it has to be pulled back, potentially back to the $72 area. Me personally, I have not entered Dash, missed that 64% increase, but it is breaking this black downward trend line, which we have looked at previously in history, which is roughly this area. Not the best downward trend line because we could move this over here and something like this where we have that rejection. We ultimately need to be holding over this area around 70 to 72 and ideally getting a close above 76. But the main thing to keep in mind is the RSI is overbought. The volume is picking up. So this is all very good information. And sometimes we've seen in the past where it gets overbought and it has a continuation and just blast up really quickly. I'm not saying to enter into Dash right now. I want to see a little bit of a close above this area, some consolidation to bring that 200 EMA start curving upwards, getting the CM Guppy a little bit closer. Keeping in mind this is in the daily. If we move into the 4 hour, we can see it is very overbought at the moment. This is starting to get a little green and curving, which we've seen in the past when it does that, it has a retracement, but this still had an upward continuation back here in October 2nd with some consolidation for a long period. So it's nothing to be worried about in trying to FOMO, buy in at this high point, wait for it to get a consolidation. And when we can start seeing a close or multiple closes within this area around 70 to 72, that is where you'd be looking for an entry, as this 200 EMA is very strong on the 4 hour, but wait for that close as we could have a quick retracement like we've seen back here on October 12th, where it pulled all the way back down to $39, keeping the 200 EMA very nice and close. Moving on to ZBEC network. I say these are the coins that are about to explode, but honestly, Lightlink, that's one I'm going to talk about here in a minute. It's not very, very good. But ZBEC network is trying to hold support over that 200 EMA. We are working within this triangle bullish pendant. And what we could expect for the next pump up, let's do something like this. Let's get a range because this would be the flagpole. 733%, say it breaks out of here. We could expect to push up towards another 139% around the 0.01 cent area. I believe ZBEC network has a bigger history that is not shown, but for that we are kind of expecting that push up to around 1 cent from 0.003. Pretty good gains. We are getting a lot of support. This wick off here shows that we have some pretty good support within that area. Moving back to MEXC where we can kind of see the range of where we are working at. RSI is healthy. We need a little bit of volume to start seeing better entry, but ultimately we want to break this downward trend line before entering into ZBEC network. Lightlink, there's not really a whole bunch of information besides a lot of volume. Even looking at other charts like Bybit and other ones, I mean, it does have a very astronomical high around 30 cents more or less, and we are at less than a penny. But for better opportunities, I think XCN does have more of a basis and better data to be entering in. This is more of a gamble. It's in a constant downward trend. Even with that pump recently, it's still not much to go off of. So Lightlink, I personally would avoid it. Once we get over the 200 EMA, it may be something to look into for a scalp trade, as we've seen back here in November. It had that push up to around 12 cents from around 0.03. So like 4x from that point, we are definitely a lot lower. And we could expect the 618 retracement from the previous all-time high, or previous high, I guess, being here. Say it bottoms out here. 618 is around here at 0.07 cents, potentially 0.08. Say you're just risking it for the biscuit and you enter. That's around 683% potential. But again, there's not a whole bunch of data to be going off of for Lightlink. It's more of a gamble at this moment. XCN is definitely a better bet with the information and data that is provided. CTSI, for those of you who are in CTSI, I did want to bring this up. I'm not sure if my information stayed here, but let's move into the daily so we get a better view. It is here. So I had pasted down here in the RSI, look, we are oversold, and then we had that push up to overbought, and then consolidation before breaking out and being overbought, consolidation, and then a slight little bit overbought, consolidation back to the 50, a little bit lower before overbuying yet again. And even just keeping in mind with the RSI, look at this yellow box area. Imagine this being the previous area we were working within with the all-time high and then the low. So imagine this is the all-time high and the low. We are looking at the bigger picture being all-time high and low. So we have consolidated and held low for quite a while. We need to get over that 200 EMA. Keeping in mind this boxed out area, we pushed up to the overbought. Over here, we pushed up to the overbought area, but we are not holding above the 200 EMA yet. Ideally, once we get over that 200 EMA, we can expect something similar to this, where we had a hold in January and then a major push up. It may not look like much, but that increase is around 800% and ultimately around 3,000, roughly 300% for the increase in profit. CTSI is very, very cheap at the moment, and it does have some major potential for the upside, being around $1.74, around 3,300% from a 5-cent investment. How many pennies do you want to invest to potentially get 3,000%, turning 5 cents into nearly $2? Very good probability and risk to reward ratio, as we are still in the oversold in the RSI. Consolidation, we can expect that push up, getting us above that 200 EMA, a pullback, holding it back at the 50 in the RSI before ultimately pushing up very quickly to the dollar mark, or at least getting a little resistance here at 47 cents from a 5-cent investment is very, very good for the RSI. And when we do the Fibonacci retracement, say from this all-time high to the low, the 618 is right here at $1.11. That risk to reward ratio, say you're entering around a penny or 5 cents, that's still 2,000% potential. Very, very good risk to reward ratio for CTSI. Entering now or even at a little bit lower is not a bad bet. Looking at the absolute lows, we're looking roughly around here. Doesn't have, I mean, that's pretty substantial retracement when you start zooming in. If you enter in at this point, you could see a 62% deduction, but your probability of increase in profit for the first resistance is 832. So, lose 50% of your money as long as you're not selling out. you have the potential to earn 837 minimum increase in profit for CTSI. So that's kind of it for this video. For the people who wanted to see those things, this is a general basis. We may go back over this when we start seeing a pump, but right now Dash is looking pretty good. Even with that major pump, we are building higher lows, but you do want to keep in mind that trend lines are very important. And this is the trend line we are dealing with. We've touched it a few times, so we could see a retracement if it breaks through that 200 EMA as the support. But if it can hold this trend line and start moving upwards along with it, breaking over that $75 mark is where you would really want to be looking at your entry for Dash. So that's it for this video. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Good luck. Have fun with it. Use the reference links in the description below to trade on MEXC for the lowest trading fee platform and free 20 USDT using that reference link. Good luck. Have fun with it. I'll see you on the next one.